So, I hope you didn't put any money down on my guarantee. I guaranteed Boston to win Game 6 tonight. I guaranteed that we were going to have it get pushed to 7 and that the Warriors would win it in 7. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, the Warriors, congrats to Golden State. I have a lot of notes to go over. A ton. I was taking notes during the game, key points throughout the game. So we'll get into Game 6 heavy. But I just wanted to start off by saying, my fault. If you believe me, my fault. All right, we're not going to get them all right here. I'm not perfect. I got this one dead wrong. It was disappointing. It sucked to watch Boston come out and lay an egg with the series on the line in a closeout game. And we'll hop into everything. First and foremost, this is still Thursday night. This is post game. The game finished a little while ago. It's 11:30 p.m. here. I felt like while the emotions were still fresh, while my notes were still fresh, and I took notes so I wasn't going to forget any of these things, any of these key points, but my emotions led me to be here. My emotions led me to want to get directly in front of the camera, get directly on the mic and talk about the game, because I didn't expect to be emotional with the post-game celebrations. To be honest with you, a large part of me was rooting for the Celtics. I didn't have any skin in the game. I'm not a Boston fan, as you guys can tell who my team is. You can easily tell who my favorite team is in the NBA. We've had our fair share of success. We're having our fair share. We're taking the lickings right now. But I had no real skin in the game. Don't hate the Golden State Warriors. There's nobody on that team that I truly dislike. Even though Draymond Green might be someone who's easy disliked by most NBA fans, I don't even dislike Draymond. There's no one on the team that I hate. For whatever reason, I think because my friend, I have a few, like my father is a diehard Boston fan, so I wanted it for him. I have a few friends who are Celtics fans. One of my best friends is a big Celtics fan. So I kind of wanted it for them, and because of that, I was kind of rooting for the Celtics. But I was surprised in myself with how emotional I got post-game for Steph and for Klay. You know, when I see them crying and weeping tears of joy in celebration, I can't help but just think about what they've gone through, especially Klay Thompson, for the 2 years, almost 3 years that has not been able to play high-level basketball because of injuries. People wrote him off. People said, that's it. This team's done. We're going to have to see some kind of reiteration of this team. They're going to have to... How many times did we hear when they were dead last a few years ago, when they lost in the play-in tournament last year? How many times did we hear, well, they're going to have to move on from Klay and Draymond, and let's see what other pieces they're going to have to add to Steph, because this just isn't a championship team anymore. So for them to come out and play this way, the way they played all season, and the acquisitions that they made, people forget Jordan Poole was not some big-time acquisition that they got. Andrew Wiggins was somebody who everyone referred to as a bust. This team was not supposed to be here. This team is not supposed to be the team holding the title right now. Steph and Klay and Draymond are not the core pieces that should be winning the title, so I got emotional for them. I got emotional for Steph. I got emotional for Klay in particular. And like I said, I love it when you see a core that was built from within with the big three, the main three of that team, which Andrew Wiggins obviously deserves his flowers. He was spectacular all series long. The guy definitely put to bed, and he talks of being a bust, and he talks of not being good, about being somebody who's overpaid. He put all that to rest with his spectacular performance on both ends of the court. So just congratulations to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and the rest of the Golden State Warriors. Fantastic performance for them. And I was surprised. And there's so much to talk about from the Boston Celtics. If you're a Boston Celtics fan, I understand your pain. I understand the frustration. Every Celtics fan I talked to today during the game, it was frustration. It was frustration not because Steph Curry's just so good, and the Warriors are just so good. It's frustration because they felt like they left so much on the table. The team just left so much, and they picked the worst times to play their worst basketball. I'm just going to start off at the top with where my notes ran through. They kind of stayed course throughout the game. So at the very beginning of the game, Boston comes out strong. They do their thing. They go up, I believe, 12 points. And then I believe Ime Udoka makes a very critical mistake that cost him the rest of the game. Ime brings in Payton Pritchard, and he does this because Tatum and Smart get into a little bit of foul trouble. But he brings in Payton Pritchard, he brings in Derek White, and he brings in Grant Williams all together on the floor. Now, I understand you have an 8-man rotation, but the stretch, the amount of time that he allowed Payton Pritchard, Derek White, and Grant Williams to be on the floor was far too long. Those three guys came in off the bench, and together, as a trio on the floor, gave up a 21-0 run to the Golden State Warriors. They stayed in until the second quarter. They come out of the game. All three of them immediately come out of the game. And right away, Boston makes a 7-0 run. That stretch went on far too long, in my opinion. When you see a 10-0 run, I get it. I get that you need fresh legs. I know that you're going to need those guys in the second half. But the games, you're not up 3-2. You're not up 2-1. You don't have an entire series to have to think about. You only have to think about this very game and what is it going to take to get the game 7. We will cross that bridge when we get there. We will cross the bridge of having legs for the second half when we get there. We cannot allow Golden State to make this kind of run on us right now. He left them in there for far too long. Far too long. Golden State took another big lead. And, I talked about what they have. And as much as Boston did struggle in the game, the turnovers, I said this in yesterday's podcast before the game, right? It dropped right before, it dropped an hour before the game started. And if you go back and look at that podcast, what I said was, they don't have somebody that can take care of the ball consistently. They don't have a ball handler. Tatum and Brown, their weakest points, which they don't have much. Let me not try to discredit Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum for a phenomenal season, a phenomenal playoff run. They both had unbelievable moments throughout the playoffs. They are ballers. They are studs. They are that guy. Skip Bayless tweeted out, Jayson Tatum is simply not that guy. No, Skip Bayless is simply not that guy. Jayson Tatum is that guy. Is he the greatest player of all time, which I think is what Skip Bayless is referring to? No. No one ever said he was the best player of all time. Nobody has Jayson Tatum as the best player in the NBA. So I don't know what he's referring to. Nobody ever really knows what he's referring to. But they had a great series. However, the issue remains the same that I have been talking about with the Boston Celtics for years now. You have two guys who their strengths, their body types, their builds, where they want to score from, where they want to get the ball, what spots on the floor they're most efficient at, are the same. Their strengths are the same, and their weaknesses are the same. The ball handling, the ball security continues to be a weakness for both. Their inability to finish consistently on the left side to the left hand, it continues to be an issue for both. Now, it's not an issue for each one individually, but when you have two guys who can be guarded the same by the same type of players, it becomes an issue. There's not enough switches caused by the two of them. If you look at the Warriors and what they do, and the role that Draymond plays as a facilitator, but also as a screener, and the way they play, it really is when Steph Curry's on the floor, it's four guys doing everything they possibly can to get Steph Curry a good look, to get him a good shot. And when Curry has the ball, it's him doing everything he can to get somebody else a great look and a great shot. It's just this constant harmony of everybody trying on off-ball screens. I mean, there's possessions that you see time and time again where Curry's off-ball gets two screens off-ball. He gets one from Otto Porter Jr., then he gets one from Clay, then he gets the ball on a dribble handoff where he gets a screen from Draymond, pump fakes, comes back across Draymond, gets another screen from Draymond, and knocks down a three. 4 screens for one guy in the course of a play where 3 different guys screen for him. Now, I'm not saying that that's the type of style that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown can play. They're not those type of off-ball. They don't have that quickness and the ability to catch and shoot that Steph Curry has, obviously. But it's the constant effort to make things easier on that guy. Make things easier for Jayson Tatum. And too many times throughout this series, especially in this last game, where Jayson Tatum is being asked to just simply do it. Just go one-on-one and do it. But Tatum isn't going one-on-one. The help defense is coming. They're not in great positions. They're not cutting in certain ways to make it easier for them. And a lot of blame is definitely on Jayson Tatum. At some point, you have to be the guy. At some point, you cannot be completely ineffective. Jayson Tatum had 0, and I mean 0 contribution in the second half. And he completely allowed the Golden State Warriors, and specifically Andrew Wiggins in particular, to take him out of the second half. Completely take him out of the ball game. You can't let that happen if you're the best player on the floor. You can't let that happen, which he's not, Steph Curry is, but you can't let that happen if you're the best player for your team. You cannot allow them to take you out of the game completely. You have to find a way. You have to find a way to leave your mark in this game. And unfortunately, he just didn't. He just didn't. And I even put here one of my notes, at 4 minutes and 50 seconds left in the second quarter, it's evident that the starters are going to have to play the rest of the way for Boston. It's impossible to win an NBA Finals. It's impossible to win a championship game when you're forced to play a 5-man rotation. The Boston has an 8-man rotation to begin with. They don't play a deep bench. They play 8 guys. And they play 2 of the 8 sparingly. Really a 7-man rotation. Pritchard, they drizzle in. It's really Derek White, Grant Williams off the bench. And that's it. Like I said, they sprinkle in some Peyton Pritchard. And it was evident at that point, 4:50 left in the second quarter, that Pritchard, Derek White cannot play in this series. And credit that to Golden State. You force a team to cut down their rotation. Anytime you can force a team to say, hey, those guys can't play in this game. They cannot play in this game because we will expose them. Anytime that happens, it becomes very difficult to win a series when you're cutting down another team's rotation. I thought there was an opportunity going into the series that Boston would be able to do that against Golden State, that Boston may be able to take a few of the smaller guards away from Golden State, that Boston would be too big and it would force Kevon Looney and force some of the bigs to play a little bit more minutes, Bielitsa to play a little bit more minutes than they want to, and take away minutes from a Gary Payton or somebody like that, where it's just too much size, they're hurting you too much inside. You have to take away the lineup, or at least switch the lineup from what they are best at, which is that small ball, and they just weren't able to do that, especially Game 5 and Game 6, they weren't able to do that. Golden State was able to say, hey, we're good with the small ball. Steph Curry guarding. I even tweeted out at one point, what did I say? Second quarter, right? This was a little after that 4:50 mark. This was about 3 minutes left in the second quarter. There is a possession where I'm looking, Jaylen Brown has the ball at the wing. He has the ball. Al Horford's posting up directly in front of him with Steph Curry on his back. On the other side of the block is Robert Williams with Gary Payton on him. You got both of your point guards, both of Golden State's point guards guarding 2 centers. Al Horford plays center a lot. Al Horford's played center most of his career. And you're allowing them to guard him. And I'm waiting for the ball to be entered to Al Horford where he could take advantage of Steph Curry. And instead, that possession ends with Jaylen Brown trying to force a drive on Andrew Wiggins, where he barrels into everybody that's in the paint. Al Horford, Robert Williams, Gary Payton, and Steph Curry all meet in the middle, a big mesh, and he ends up turning the ball over. These are the type of plays that lose you a championship. The inability to simply get an entry pass. Jaylen Brown saw him. He pump faked him. He just didn't make the entry pass. Al Horford was calling. This wasn't a late switch in the rotation either. This wasn't, they were switching, they were in the rotation, late in the shot clock, they get the switch, they couldn't get it, and they go. No, they came down court, and were stuck in that. As soon as they came down court, Horford hit the block, sealed off Steph, and was calling for the ball for about 5-6 seconds. Never got the rock. Instead, they get a turnover. Even if you get it to him and he just puts it off the board, you still have Robert Williams there for the offensive rebound. And they don't get any of it. It just the lack of championship IQ, the type of mental discipline and mental fortitude it takes to win a championship series, it's at an all-time high, and the Celtics are going to learn from this. Boston's definitely going to learn. They're going to understand that that's what it takes. Sorry, I was covering up my boy Jocko Willink back there. But Boston's going to learn that moving forward. They're still young. They're still a young team. They desperately need a point guard. I tried to sugarcoat it yesterday's episode, and I was like, hey, they don't need a point guard per se. They might need somebody to just kind of take the ball out of their hands a little bit, but they need a point guard desperately. It's so clear cut that they will not win without a true point guard on that team. I mean, they need it. They absolutely need it. And I mean, just what a haunting way to go out if you're Boston. What a haunting. It's going to haunt Tatum. You know, it's going to haunt all of them. But I think if you're Jayson Tatum, you've took on the responsibility this season, and you've taken on the responsibility of being that guy, right? The face of the franchise for the Boston Celtics, and you've took on all the responsibility that comes with it, and you've been so good for so many years, and every year Jayson Tatum looks better. Every single year he just keeps climbing atop the leaderboard of the best players in the NBA. It's probably a top 10. I would have to go back and look, but I could say pretty easily that he's a top 10 player in the league. And he's worked every single year. He's gotten closer to the top of the ranks every single year. But this game's going to haunt him. To allow Andrew Wiggins and the Warriors to completely take you out of the game is inexcusable. It really is. You have to find a way, man. The greats find a way. The greats find a way to make their mark. The greats find a way to put stress on that opposing team, to put stress on the defense. You cannot be taken out completely of a second half. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada for the entire second half of a closeout game. A game where your team cut a 20-point lead to 9. They got the game into the single digits with zero help from Jayson Tatum. And from that point on, got zero help from Jayson Tatum. This is going to haunt him. Make him better. He can come back and make another leap where you're like, damn, Jayson Tatum is that guy. And there's a lot to look forward to if you're a Boston fan. Again, Tatum, 24 years old. Jaylen Brown, 25. Robert Williams, young. You know, you lose a couple guys. Don't know what's going on with Al Horford. Don't know how bright the future is for Marcus Smart. But even with that money, you can have other guys come in. That core, that nucleus of guys between Tatum, Brown, Robert Williams, and Marcus Smart, if you decide to keep him, that's still a championship nucleus if you put enough depth. And maybe now you don't put all your eggs into a basket of one guy. Horford was still a very overpaid player, even though shout out to Horford, he had a phenomenal third quarter. I even had to jot that down. Outstanding third for Al Horford, man. You can see that passion. And Robert Williams, speaking of Robert Williams, dude was my favorite player of the series. Robert Williams plays with so much passion, so much athleticism, so his IQ level too. He's not just some big athletic freak like, sorry, I don't want to shit on JaVale McGee, but he's the first person that came to my mind. He's not a JaVale McGee. He has very high IQ. JaVale McGee's not stupid. JaVale McGee's not dumb. Not saying he is. But we've seen, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about with JaVale McGee. He's not like that. We've seen him make great passes in this series, even as a big. I mean, he made a pass today off the dribble, one hand backdoor cut, but Tatum, it was beautiful. He's made some passes in the series. I remember he made a touch pass to a 3-point shot. That was beautiful. Robert Williams, healthy, is going to be an impactful player for the future. For the rest of his time, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be such a big impact player for the Boston Celtics moving forward. So they have a lot to look forward to. I even said here, will Boston have enough in the fourth? This is when they cut it to single digits. I believe they entered the fourth with a 10-point deficit. And I had mentioned this. I even mentioned this to my father. I called him and was like, hey, Dad, I feel like Boston can make a run, but my issue is, and I told him, I said, my issue is it's clear that they have to play 5-man rotation. They have to play 5 or 6. Peyton Pritchard and Derek White cannot play in this game. And because of that, if they make a run in the third, will they have legs for the fourth? And they did it. Shout out to Jaylen Brown. He did everything he could. He tried to put the team on his back, but he's just so reckless. The level of aggression, it's tough because you want a player to be aggressive at all times. And I know you hear it all the time. Don't bail them out. Don't bail the team out by taking a tough shot, by taking a contested shot. And I agree with that. But this is what happens when you're too aggressive. Sometimes you have to find ways, and a lot of this goes on Ime Udoka. You have to find ways to get easier looks. Jaylen Brown barreling his head into people, Tatum barreling his way into people, constantly looking at the referees for help, constantly looking at the refs to bail him out of another bad attempt at a poor drive where you're throwing yourself into bodies and trying to flip it up at the rim, and then you stare at the refs to try to bail you out of that bad play. It just wasn't going to happen. I hated the way Jayson Tatum all series long was just looking at the refs and just griping consistently. Yes, you had a couple calls that should have gone your way that didn't go your way, but what are we going to do about it? Like every possession, every turnover, every bad shot, it's complain to the refs. And, in this series, I think you were able to see just the coaching pedigree of Steve Kerr compared to Ime Udoka. This is Udoka's first year as a head coach, guys. Like I said, you're down in the dumps right now as a Boston Celtics fan. I get it. There's a lot to be down in the dumps in. This is not how you want to go out. You wanted to go out fighting. You wanted to go out with a great performance. Hey, if we push it to 7 and they're just better, then they're just better, which they are. This was clear that they're just a deeper team. At the end of the day, no matter how many mistakes Boston made, no matter how bad they were with taking care of the ball, no matter how poor Jayson Tatum played in the second half of this game, no matter those mistakes, you're just asking too much when you have a 5-6-man rotation and they're going 8 deep. Not only are they going 8 deep, they're getting Jordan Poole off the bench, who's making huge contributions. Andrew Wiggins is making huge contributions. That's the equivalent of Derek White dropping 20-plus a game. That's the equivalent of Al Horford dropping 20-plus a game like Wiggins. Guys that you don't really expect to lead the way. You expect it to be a lot of Curry, a lot of Poole, a lot of Klay Thompson. You don't expect Poole and Wiggins to really carry the load in big moments at times where Curry has to sit. He had the luxury of seeing there were moments where you don't even really recognize the Curry's on the bench, where they go on stretches and here's your opportunity. Every time he sits down, it's like, all right, Boston, here's your opportunity to cut the lead down. And sometimes the lead expands. Sometimes Poole starts getting it going and Wiggins starts getting it going and Klay hits a couple shots. They're just a deeper team. And this is why I picked them to win the series. I thought they were just a slightly better team. I thought they just had too much depth. If Derek White gives you a good game, if Grant Williams gives you a good game, if Peyton Pritchard can knock down some shots, they can beat anybody. But the problem is that has been such a big if. And it's been a big if for the Celtics for years now. For years, the Celtics have not had the bench, the depth needed to win it all. And I say this for a team that made it to Game 6 of the NBA Finals. They have so much to look forward to. If you are a Boston Celtics fan, you have so much to look forward to. One more note that I didn't get to happened earlier in the game. Jeff Van Gundy has been calling this, and it's bigger, it's more outside of the realm of just this game. But Jayson Tatum had a take foul in the second quarter. Might have been first quarter. I think it was actually the first quarter of the game, where he turns the ball over. Steph Curry was going to go out and push. They were in transition. I get why you take a take foul in that situation. You don't want to give up an easy layup, an easy fast break layup. And he grabs Curry and fouls him. And Jeff Van Gundy said it right then and there. I don't like superstars getting take fouls. I don't like Jayson Tatum having a take foul this early in the game where he has one foul. And lo and behold, he gets another foul in that quarter. Now he has to sit. Picks up another foul in the second quarter. Now he has to sit. Those are issues that you cannot have. And and the reason I say it's bigger than just tonight is because Jeff Van Gundy has been saying this since the beginning of the playoffs. Since the very first round of the playoff, every single time Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, anybody, any superstar on a team has a take foul. Take foul being you don't want to give up the fast break, so you intentionally foul a guy to stop and prevent a fast break points. What he's saying is those 2 points, even if it's 3 points for a transition three, are not as valuable. They're not as important as your star player picking up an extra foul. You don't know what the rest of the game is going to look like. You don't know if he's going to be able to stay out of foul trouble or not. So to pick up a cheap one is too much of a gamble, and teams continue to do it, and I don't understand. This notion that everybody has to play the same, nobody's bigger than the next, and you just, if player 10 on our team is going to get a take foul, player 1 on our team could get a take foul. No! Guys are more valuable. Ask the Golden State Warriors if they want Steph Curry taking take fouls. Ask the Golden State Warriors if they're cool with Steph Curry just being one of the guys. When he's on the court, like I said, it's 4 dudes setting him up. 4 guys constantly trying to get him easy looks. They are not happy with him taking take fouls, and I don't understand why this continues to happen. I hope teams look forward to this next season and say, hey, this whole take foul thing, give up the 2. Give up the layup. We already had the turnover. We don't need to compound a turnover with a foul. Right? We're giving up a turnover to a layup or to transition 3. Yeah, that's what happens when you turn the ball over. We can't have is a turnover leading to our best player picking up a cheap foul where we don't know where the rest of this game is going to go. Just a small point of emphasis. I love that Jeff Van Gundy has been harping on that all playoffs long. I couldn't agree with him more. I think it is not. It's completely opposite of why they're doing it. They're doing it because they think it's smart basketball and prevents an easy bucket. It is not smart basketball. Your key players are too valuable to keep doing this. I hope it stops. I really, really do. But shout out to Golden State. Like I said, what does this mean for them? It has to feel better. You see Steph and the emotions, and yes, Steph had high emotions when he won the previous 3 championships that he's won. This is number 4 for this team. When he won the other 3, yes, he was emotional, and yes, he was happy, but it was a lot more joy and celebration, where here you can see almost the overcoming of emotions of the struggle. Right, the fact that maybe this image, this vision of being a champion seemed bleak at many points, not only of this season, but specifically the last couple years since Kevin Durant's departure. This vision of winning a championship seemed very bleak to the point where people thought this team was going to have to break up. There's no way that you can keep Draymond and Klay Thompson on this team and expect to win a title. And you can see that. You can see all of that wearing on Steph, and he's crying and he's emotional, and his dad's hugging him, and Klay's emotional, and Draymond celebrate. It's just beautiful to watch. So as much as I was rooting for Boston, I wanted Boston to win. Again, I'm not a Boston fan by any means, so I can definitely appreciate people like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and the devastating injuries that he's gone through, Jordan Poole being drafted where he was drafted, coming in and being an impact player, and the Warriors just hitting on another guy that so many teams could have gotten. Golden State hits on another one, a guy in Andrew Wiggins who's called a bust, who people since he was drafted in the NBA have been saying he is a bust. He is not a very good player. He is overpaid, and he ends up being, I have to go back and look at the entire series. I know Jordan Poole was very good at points, but Andrew Wiggins outside of Curry was the best player. Outside of Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins was the best. And you can make the case that Wiggins was the most consistent because he did it on both ends of the floor, and he didn't really have a terrible night on offense. Steph Curry had one game that was really bad, and a game that they still won in large part thanks to Andrew Wiggins. So to see all of those, to know the storylines, to know what those guys have gone through, I couldn't feel happier for the Golden State Warriors. I couldn't feel like a team that really, really deserved this title won the title. They're built, not bought. Where they were bought at one point with Kevin Durant, it just, the way the world has flipped. And I think it's good for Steph. I'm actually watching them right now, still celebrating. But it's good for Steph. I think to get out of that, well, you needed KD, and you guys had the cheat code. and you guys made basketball unfair, and your championship rings are tainted, all of those things that were spoken of, I think it has to feel good for Steph Curry to sit here and go, what now? What can you possibly say about this one? And the answer is congratulations. That's all you can say. Congratulations, man. You deserved it. You guys worked your ass off for it, and you guys got the job done. So congrats to Golden State. That's a wrap on the NBA playoffs. That's a wrap on the NBA season. Sucks. I would have loved a Game 7, even if Golden State wins the Game 7. Game 7s are what we live for. But Boston just didn't. They didn't answer the bell, unfortunately. If you're a Boston fan, I think that's the most disappointing, is you guys went down quite embarrassingly. They did make a run. They cut it to 9 at one point, but even when they cut it to 9, I was like, there's still so much work they have to do. And Tatum has to start knocking. I mean, they're not going to win this game with no contribution for Tatum. Tatum's going to have to take over at some point if they want to complete the comeback and win. And it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. But Ime Udoka, a tough one in his first year, but huge accomplishments in his first year. For your first year to take over a team and get to the NBA Finals, especially with the type of season they had, where they looked kind of pitiful. They looked like a team that was quite disappointing in the beginning of the year. This is a team where I think when you look at the roster, you should have championship aspirations, or at least Eastern Conference Finals. You should expect to be in the top echelon of the Eastern Conference when you just look at this team on paper. On the first half of the season, they were pitiful. They were hanging somewhere around 8 to 10 seed, and there were so many questions of, man, if this continues, they might not even make the playoffs. So to turn that around post All-Star break, make the couple acquisitions, which weren't great acquisitions, and in the last 2 games, those acquisitions didn't mean anything. Daniel Tice didn't play. Derek White had to be taken out of the game because of how terrible he was on offense, couldn't make a wide open shot. So it didn't really matter in these scenarios, but you made the acquisitions that weren't huge, but were just what you needed. You figured it out. You got the team together. You brought the camaraderie. You figured it out in terms of chemistry and how you wanted to play the game. And you guys made a great run. You get to the NBA Finals. There's nothing to hang your head about if you're the Boston Celtics, and if you're Ime Udoka, if you're a Boston Celtics fan, be very, very happy with where this team is headed. You could be disappointed in tonight. You could be disappointed in the play and the performance of some of the guys in particular, and the performance of the team, the lack of physicality at points, the lack of mental fortitude that you would need in this situation. You could be upset at that. You could be disappointed at that. But you should be very proud of the entire season that you had, and you should be very proud, and you should be very, you should just be happy for what to look forward to. You should feel very optimistic about the future of this team, because they're still very young coach, very young nucleus, and I would love to see this team with a point guard added and with a healthy Robert Williams and Tatum and Brown having another offseason to really work. If you don't think this is going to fuel them, this is going to answer a lot of who they are inside, and there has been nothing that shows me that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown don't work their ass off to improve. So if you don't think this loss is going to fuel Jayson Tatum to be better next year, you're crazy. Guarantee you they're going to look just as good, if not better, than they were this year. They might look as good for the entirety of a season, and that makes things a little bit more dangerous. But an awesome season. Like I said, congrats to the Golden State Warriors. I saw NHL is in the championship. I guess they're in the finals as well for the NHL. I could not imagine watching that. I just couldn't imagine it. I don't know who watches the NHL, and I don't speak for the people in attendance. Like, I know the NHL is one of those things that people always talk about. Like, I hear all the time too, NASCAR, if you ever get an opportunity to go to a NASCAR event, you gotta go. I get it, and it's probably dope, and I would. NHL, if I had an opportunity to get some free tickets to an NHL game, I would. And I'm sure it's dope. I'm sure the live events are awesome. I couldn't imagine in a million years sitting through a NASCAR race. I couldn't imagine watching an entire NHL game. It's the finals. I couldn't care less. And I tried. I promise you, I've tried. It just ain't for me. I'm sure in attendance it's dope. The crowd looks amazing. They look hyped. They look lit. I can't watch it from home and watch an entire NHL game. I got to be baseball, even worse. Baseball's even worse. So now that the NBA's come to a close, now that the NFL has not started yet, I'm going to start getting into a lot of NFL news, rumors, what's going on, where teams are looking, where teams are shaping up. And then, of course, the UFC always provides the heat. Thank God for the MMA world. Thank God for the UFC in particular, but MMA in general. When Bellator, when Eagle FC, when One and all of them have really good cards coming up, boxing as well, I'll be able to jump into that. So expect a lot of combat sports talk moving forward. But we still have a lot to talk about, even postseason. The draft is coming up. We'll talk a lot about the NFL, NBA draft. We'll talk a lot about the NFL. We'll go over draft grades that we haven't done in the NFL. Just the Deshaun Watson scenario. Wouldn't it be such a Browns thing? Like how Cleveland Browns would it be if they gave up everything they gave up to get Deshaun Watson? They've made it apparent that they are done with Baker Mayfield. They've even gone to the point of basically lowering his own value to the team and saying that he's just not the guy, and make it a very clear point that they will do whatever it takes to get the guy, because Baker is not and will not ever be the guy. Now, how crazy would it be if they trade Baker to, say, Carolina or some team, and then Deshaun Watson still gets suspended or worse, and he's gone, and they're left with no quarterback? How insane would that be? I'm sure there has to be something in the dialogue where if Deshaun Watson were to get arrested, were to spend years away, where that trade would get voided. There has to be some language in there where that takes place. I couldn't imagine that if something happened with Deshaun Watson where he was going to be put away, or he was not going to be able to play for the Cleveland Browns for some time, that they would just be like, well, Major Ben, now you gotta lie in it. I would imagine that trade would be voided. I think if it's maybe a 1-year suspension or something, they would have to eat that, especially with the way the contract looks. I think his guarantee or his pay is like $1 million or something like that for this year. And then next year, it's a crazy, insane amount. Like, he makes kind of nothing this first year. So just in case he gets suspended, they don't really pay him much. But that would be such a Cleveland Brown thing to happen, where it's like, now you're left with nobody when you wrote off a guy who, when healthy, looked decent, and then you bring a guy in who all of a sudden, you feel like could be the championship guy. And then I started saying, and it's crazy whenever you have somebody who's going through some legal issues, when you have somebody who's going through some off-field issues, how everything on-field starts getting highlighted. Like, it's crazy to me. I've seen so many shots now, so many videos of Deshaun Watson in practice throwing interceptions, throwing balls behind him. Like, how much of this is Deshaun Watson really being just terrible? Like, he's just really, really rusty right now because maybe he wasn't putting in the work. Maybe he wasn't getting live reps, which you need. Maybe he didn't have the opportunity or the time to really take guys and stay active and stay in real throwing scenarios. How much of it is that, and how much of it is just anything Deshaun Watson does on the field is going to be magnified now because of the situation, because of the allegations off field? Like, it's going to be tough, man. It's not, if you're Cleveland, it's a tough situation because you hope that everything goes away, and you hope you get the Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans, the Deshaun Watson who put the team on his back, the Deshaun Watson who is getting MVP votes, who look like the guy. You want to get that guy, and that's what you're hoping for. But there's a good possibility that you get a guy who has this weight of the world just crushing him, and maybe the mental fatigue of dealing with the situation like this is, even if, whether the allegations are true or not, I don't know what's more of a mind game, what's more what you would have a strong mental fortitude to push past. Because if the allegations are true, you're obviously in a state of fear, right? You're constantly in a state of fear. And even if the allegations aren't true, you're in a state of fear. But it's the fear and the guilt and that constant, like, if the right thing happens, you have to know, right? I would assume that criminals know in the back of their mind I'm not calling him a criminal, I don't know. But I'm saying criminals in general, they have to know in their back of their mind when they're going through court cases or we're going through something, they have to know in their back of their mind, well, if things work out the way they're supposed to, I'm going to go to jail. Right? So if Deshaun Watson is guilty of these allegations, in the back of his mind, he would have to be thinking, if things go the way they should, if the legal system prevails, I'm screwed. And if he didn't do it, then it's even a more so of like, God, everybody thinks of me this way. People are talking so negative. I'm all these Bill Cosby being, photoshopped over his Cleveland Browns jersey and stuff. I mean, it's just wild. And to see that, and you have to see it. You can avoid it as much as possible, but you hear the chatter, you hear the rumors. There's going to be fans. Every away team, every away fan is going to be saying the craziest shit. I'm sure his DMs, comment section, everything that has to weigh on somebody so much that it's so hard to imagine going through that situation, even if not guilty, even if this is just one big ploy, one big bullshitted story to try to get money from this athlete. Even if that's the case, the weight of it is enough to completely alter your career. And it sucks. It sucks if it's not true. I mean, it sucks either way, right? It sucks if it's true because, damn, you really fucked your life up and these poor girls and all of those things. And if it's not true, it still sucks because, damn, then this poor guy, you guys completely ruin his life. You completely ruin his career, and he could get it back and he could still be the guy, but the mental toughness that would take. Like, if he's truly innocent of all these things, like he says he is, and he's able to just go ball out and he's back on top and he's looking better than ever, that mental toughness would be wild. Because I couldn't imagine the dark days that he's been having this much. Again, not defending him because I don't know anything. So maybe those dark days that he's had, good, he deserves it. And maybe those dark days that he's had, damn, that sucks, man. We don't know yet. But it just speaks to how mentally tough he's going to have to be regardless. Even if he's guilty, won't have sympathy for him being guilty, but whether you're guilty or not, like the mental toughness you're going to have to battle through this and still be at the top of your game throwing a football like that is wild to me. And then tomorrow night, UFC Fight Night, Calvin Kattar versus Emmett. It's going to be an awesome fight. Calvin Kattar coming off of his best performance, I believe, his best performance of his career against Giga Chikadze. A lot of people had Giga in that fight. But a lot of people felt like Max Holloway put such a beat down on Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar is going to look terrible against Giga as well. They felt like, hey, if Max is piecing you up, Giga's going to do that. And then some. Didn't work out that way at all. Calvin Kattar put a beat down, a spectacular performance on Giga. Looked the best he's ever looked. There's something to be said about the fight immediately after fighting Max Holloway. Like, every time somebody's fought Max and then somebody else, they've looked better than they ever have. Like, there has to be something to that, right? There has to be something to getting pushed, getting beat up, being taught a lesson. I mean, literally teaching Brian Ortega a lesson on striking while they're in there. A boxing lesson he's giving him while he's beating the shit out of him. There has to be something that you learn from that, right? You have to come out of it. You would think you come out of it weak, but for some reason, these guys are coming out of it stronger. You remember Brian Ortega, I believe his next fight after Max was, I'm trying to recall, but I think it was Korean Zombie. I think it was Zombie, and he put a masterclass. He looked better than he ever has. Everyone was like, Jesus, when did Brian Ortega become this level of striker? We thought Zombie would have the striking advantage against Brian Ortega, and Brian Ortega was piecing him up, outboxing him. We didn't expect that. Same thing goes for Calvin Kattar. It's like, man, the shots he took, the beatdown that he took against Max Holloway, Giga's such a good kickboxer, man. Amazing kickboxing. And he pieced him up, beat him up badly, left him in a pool of blood, and this fight is going to be great. Emmett definitely has that ability to shut people's lights off, so Calvin Kattar can't take big shots in this fight. But damn, it's hard to pick against Calvin Kattar after that performance. And even leading up to the Max fight, Calvin Kattar looked amazing. It led people to believe that was going to be a tough fight for Calvin. I mean, for Max, and unfortunately for Calvin Kattar, it wasn't a tough night for Max. But it's hard to vote against him. I got Calvin Kattar in this fight. If you're going off of my last pick of the Celtics, then I guess Emmett's gonna win. We gotta try something. We gotta get back on the winning record here. So Calvin Kattar, it's a 5-round fight. Man, I'm gonna go Calvin Kattar TKO round 3. That's gonna be my bet. But I am going Calvin Kattar in this fight. But if I have to put a round and I have to put a way, if I have to put by which way he's going to win, I'm going to go round 3 TKO. I just don't see a fight between these two, the way they put themselves in danger at times. Emmett has shown that he's very willing to get one to give one. And guys like that, Calvin Kattar does not back down. Guys like that, is tough to imagine going 5 full rounds. They're going to land some shots on each other. I think Kattar just has a little bit crisper of boxing. He's a little bit more of the crisp striker. And his last performance, I can't bet against him after what he did to Giga. So we're going to go Calvin Kattar, TKO round 3. That's my pick. That's going to be it. Couple short ones. This one didn't push past 50 minutes, but it's all good. I just really wanted to talk about the NBA final game that just finished up. I'll be back on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. I totally forgot. Father's Day is just around the corner. If I'm not mistaken, Father's Day is on... What day is Father's Day? I'm a father. I should know what day Father's Day is. I want to say it was this weekend, right? Yeah, Sunday. Happy Father's Day. I'll say Happy Father's Day on Monday too, but I'll be back on Monday for another episode, and we'll cover a whole lot of that NFL talk that I was mentioning, a whole bunch of stuff that's been going on, and then recap a little bit of that fight night, talk a little bit about the card. Hopefully there's some dope shit that I could put in into Monday's episode. But thank you guys as always. Please like, please subscribe, and please share with somebody else. We're close to 100 subscribers. Doesn't feel like anything, but I'm trying to be a lot more consistent in this podcast and really hammer it, man. I really want to grow. Now's the time. I'm more motivated than I ever have been to trying to grow this. Any tips, anything you guys have for me, anything you guys want to see, anything you guys want to talk about, comment, question. What about this? What do you think about that? I disagree with this. Whatever it is, man. I don't need it to be all sunshine and rainbows. Hey, you were wrong about this. You were wrong about that. Cool. Let's talk about it. Hit up those comment sections. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you want to hear. Anything you want me to cover, I'll always cover it with you. You want to put a little debate in, you want to submit something, let me know where, and I'll tell you where to submit a video or a question, a voice recorder, whatever you want. We'll make it happen so I can interact with some of the subscribers, and let's keep this thing blowing up. Let's keep this thing going. Let's try to get it pushed in the right direction. Thank you guys as always. See you on Monday. Have a safe weekend. Happy Father's Day to all my boys that have kids. You guys know who you are. I love you to death. I only hang out with great fathers, and I'm proud of that. I will enjoy the hell out of my Father's Day. Love you guys. Peace.